So I think it's a great gesture from Qatar. I appreciate it very much. I would never be one to turn down that kind of an offer. I mean, I could be a stupid person and say, no, we don't want a free, very expensive airplane.
But it turns out there's nuance here. Sources tell CNN it was the Trump administration that made the initial approach. CNN's Alex Marquardt has the new reporting.
President Donald Trump has talked about this potential deal for a Qatari Boeing 747 to act as Air Force One, as a gesture, a gift from the Qatari royal family, which the U.S. would receive for free, he said. But sources tell my colleagues and me that it was the Trump administration that first made the outreach to Qatar after Trump came into office, that it is, in fact, the U.S. that made this request. Even if this deal is signed, current and former officials have told CNN that it could take 2 years and hundreds of millions of dollars, several times the value of the plane, to strip it down and rebuild it with technical and security standards fit for a U.S. presidential aircraft.
The president could not use this as an Air Force One as we know it without major modifications to the aircraft. So number one, it would have to be retrofitted for the kind of secure communications that the president needs to have while on board his aircraft. That would mean that White House communications would have to come in. They would probably have to basically rip everything out. In addition to that, there is just the idea that this is a foreign government who would be providing this aircraft to the United States. It would also have to be torn apart just to make sure that there are no listening devices. And keep in mind, it's not like these listening devices would be big and just planted in the lights and the lamps throughout this aircraft. They would have to literally pull apart the aircraft and look for tiny little devices that are not easy to spot to make sure that there was nothing in it that no information would be compromised while the president was flying on it. So it's not a quick fix, nor is it something that the U.S. would be able to just take without making major modifications.
The jumbo jet has over 6 million individual parts. Among these are over 500,000 rivets, making it one of the most complex machines ever built.
The primary motivations is to curry favor with the Trump administration. But another consideration for the Qataris is this is a plane that they seem to have been trying to get rid of unsuccessfully. 747s have been nicknamed the Queen of the Skies. They are grand planes.
Boeing 747 is being retired. Known as the Queen of the Skies, was introduced in 1970 and quickly became the symbol of air travel with its iconic design. It was the largest commercial aircraft of its time. However, the rise of more fuel-efficient and cost-effective aircraft has led to declining demand. The maintenance and operating costs of the older model have also become a burden for airlines, making it difficult for them to justify its use.
But times change, and the 747 and this type of flying palace in the sky has lost its luster. Four-engine planes like the 747 and the Airbus A340 use an extraordinary amount of fuel. They become much more expensive as fuel prices have risen, and they've been going out of service with airlines in favor of more fuel-efficient planes, and that's also made them more expensive for those who have hung on to them. Maintenance has become more expensive as fewer of them are around. And there's also been more of an emphasis on discretion, less of an interest in making a big splash with these huge planes. All that to say that Qatar, along with many other wealthy Gulf royal families and governments, have been getting rid of their 747s. And Qatar previously gave away a very similar plane, a 747-8, to the president of Turkey in 2018. They also retired another 747 in the same year, 2018. This plane was put up for sale in 2020, and there were no takers. There's a very thin market for planes like this, partly due to changing customer demands, and also the fact that they're very highly customized and often to a particular person's taste. So another person may not like the style and doesn't want to both buy the plane and then put in tens of millions of dollars redecorating it. So one of the sadder examples of that is Saudi Arabia had also a very large fleet of 747s that was used by the royal family there. There was a plane, a 747, that was purchased and lavishly decorated for the late Crown Prince, who passed away in 2011. That plane only flew something like 42 hours. The Saudis were unable to find a buyer for it. It ended up being broken up for spare parts. So with this 747, giving the plane to the Trump administration is both a way for the Qataris to wash their hands of it and the expense of maintaining it, and at the same time score some points with President Trump.
So you don't think that's the right headline coming out of this, then? That it's worth $400 million plane? Really?
No. I mean, if no one's willing to buy it, that tells you something, that it's maybe not worth as much as was spent on it originally.
So this would alleviate, then, you're saying, a few headaches for the Qataris. A, that this giant $400 million, not worth plane, just hanging over them like an albatross. It would also curry favor with the White House, paint them in a favorable light to the Trump administration. That's what they were hoping, at least. There's not a huge market for these planes, as you're saying. President Trump said the plane, he said it's a great gesture on behalf of the Qataris, and essentially only a stupid person would not accept this gift. You talked to some aerospace experts. What did they say?
It doesn't seem like such a simple case. it's one thing to get a plane for free, but to turn it into a plane that can carry the President of the United States, that takes a lot of spending and modifications. And there's been some sort of suggestion that perhaps this plane could be modified quickly and quicker than Boeing has been working on preparing the next pair of planes that are supposed to serve as Air Force One. Recently, they've been saying it may take until 2028, 2029. The requirements for a presidential plane are a lot of work is needed. There are special communication systems to allow the commander-in-chief to basically operate in the air as an airborne command center, stay in touch with U.S. troops in times of crisis. The electronics have to be shielded against an electromagnetic impulse in case there's a nuclear war, so that the electronics aren't fried. There are special defensive systems which aren't really made public. It's known that there's anti-missile systems. So it's a very complicated and expensive process to build a new Air Force One jet. And if this Qatari plane were to be roped in, well, Boeing is already many years down the line on the planes that it's supposed to deliver. It's unlikely that it would be any quicker to modify this Qatari jet unless a much lower level of security is accepted. And that doesn't seem like that would be a very wise move for President Trump or the United States.
As you said, Boeing is way down the line working on their presidential planes. Would this completely derail that process?
It certainly wouldn't help. One of the problems that Boeing has faced is that they have had a hard time getting enough qualified mechanics and other technicians who have security clearances to work on a project of this type. Now, the Trump administration has reportedly lined up L3 Harris to modify the Qatari plane. If L3 Harris is going to need the same kind of specialized workforce, well, that's going to then put another strain on the workforce. And the United States in general has a shortage of airplane mechanics, period, let alone ones who have security clearances.
The very lavish gift is raising substantial ethical and legal questions, and we want to talk about it now with Richard Painter, former White House ethics lawyer under George W. Bush and professor of law at the University of Minnesota. Richard, thank you very much for being here with us and kind of walking us through some questions around all of this. This is said to be the most expensive gift ever bestowed on a U.S. leaders. The Attorney General and White House Counsel's office have said they believe it's okay legally. Where do you come down on this? How would you assess this?
This is legal, in my view, only with consent of Congress. That's what the Emoluments Clause of the United States Constitution says, that a person holding a position of trust with the United States government cannot accept a gift from a foreign government without the consent of Congress.
States, and no person holding any office of profit or trust under them shall, without consent of the Congress, accept any present, emolument, office or title of any kind whatever from any king, prince, or foreign state. No person holding office of the United States, no person, and then they can't accept all of those things, any of those things. But of course, now you're asking, what does emolument mean? So now we're going to go to the definitional tape. Emolument, a salary, fee, or profit from employment or office.
Benjamin Franklin, who was ambassador to France, had to go to Congress to get consent to accept a snuff box that had diamonds on it from the government of France. That's what the Emoluments Clause says. And this airplane can only be accepted by President Trump if Congress consents. And to say, well, it's given to his presidential library rather than to him, that doesn't make any sense. He's going to be using this plane for this. And he then, if he says it goes to his presidential library, that is a gift that requires the consent of Congress under the Emoluments Clause of the Constitution. That's very, very clear. We can't have our president or anyone else being influenced by foreign government gifts. And that's why Congress needs to have control over that. And that's why the Constitution requires that they do. And Qatar, I got to say, is a very wealthy country. I understand that. They also have been spending over $1 billion supporting Hamas over the years. It's somewhat ironic for the United States to be accepting a gift from Qatar. This is money that really should be used rebuilding Gaza and getting Hamas the heck out of there. Qatar, why is the United States of America accepting a gift of this magnitude from a foreign government that supported terrorist organizations?
If you look at all of the indicators, it's at least in part a personal gift to the president. He expressed a desire for a new Air Force One. He toured this Qatari plane when it was on the tarmac in Palm Beach. He's going to have the personal use of it. And it's leaving when he leaves the office, is following him to his presidential library. When you put all that together, and Anna, when you listen to his words, I could have said no. I make the decision to accept this. In the I. Clearly, he's talking about a gift, at least in part, to himself. That's against the Constitution.
We are seeing bipartisan pushback, at least in part. Even some of the president's closest allies seem uncomfortable with this plan. Laura Loomer writing on social media, for example, that accepting the plane would be a stain on the administration. And here's some of the reaction from Republican lawmakers.
I think it's a mistake, and it's just bringing up something he doesn't need. Well, France gave us the Statue of Liberty, didn't it?
Is that the same thing?
But they gave us the Statue of Liberty. Was that legal? I don't know what the law is.
He seems to intend to use it for Air Force One. Do you have security concerns?
Some mixed reaction there from Republicans, but doesn't sound like they're ready to take action.
Well, Anna, Senator Kennedy says France gave us the Statue of Liberty. Well, if Donald Trump were taking the Statue of Liberty with him when he left the presidency, yes, that would be an emolument. I mean, they're bending over backwards. I think the criticism is justified. It's not just that the Constitution says no gifts from foreign countries to a president. The security concerns. Can you imagine? Qatar is one of the hosts for Hamas. We're now going to take a plane from them. The thing is so absurd. This is autocracy run amok. Courts have said 125 times that Donald Trump has violated the Constitution or laws. Make it 126. And this plane isn't even the worst of it, Anna. He's also taking crypto cash.
I think Qatar, who has really, we've helped them a lot over the years in terms of security and safety. I think they, and very, very nicely, and I have a lot of respect for the leadership and for the leader, Qatar. And I think they knew about it because they buy Boeings. They buy a lot of Boeings. And they knew about it. And they said, we would like to do something. And if we can get a 747 as a contribution to our Defense Department to use during a couple of years while they're building the other ones. I think that was a very nice gesture. Now, I could be a stupid person and say, oh, no, we don't want a free plane. We give free things out. We'll take one, too. And I think it was a gesture because of the fact that we have helped and continue to. We will continue to. All of those countries, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, and others, we keep them safe. If it wasn't for us, they probably wouldn't exist right now.
President, what do you say to people who view that luxury jet as a personal gift to you? Why not leave it behind?
Your ABC fake news, right?
Why not?
Only ABC. Well, a few of you would. Let me tell you, you should be embarrassed asking that question. They're giving us a free jet. I could say, no, don't give us. I want to pay you $1 billion or 400 million or whatever it is. Or I could say, thank you very much.